Yo, this is Hobby,
Hi, I'm Tiff. I'm his mom.
and I'm her son,
You bring the mic.
and I'll bring the words.
You're eavesdropping on an ongoing conversation between a black son and his white mom. Hobby, here we are at episode number 4.
That's right, episode number 4.
Yeah, and we're recording in once again a new spot because your siblings are officially home on summer break. And we're trying to find a quiet area of the house, so hopefully
I don't know
this
if we're
works.
gonna be successful.
I know it's really hard to find a quiet place in our home.
But here we go again.
Yeah, hopefully. So today I think that this might end up being a little longer of an episode, and possibly we have a 2-parter here. So I thought maybe in order to respect your time and our listeners' time, it would be good just to jump right into today's conversation. What do you think?
Sounds good. Let's get it, Mom.
Okay, so today we're going to be talking about international adoption and the white savior complex.
Mm-hmm.
This conversation could probably be applied to any kind of adoption, but, you know, our experiences with international adoption.
Right.
So that's what we're talking about, although it could probably be applied to
Anything.
Adoption in general. Yeah. So, Javi, when you said you were interested in doing this episode, I was surprised, honestly, and I think I'm shaking. I am shaking. Look at me.
Why
Look
are
at
you
my hands.
shaking? You are shaking. Why are you shaking?
I'm really nervous about this conversation. I think it's important. You and I have had this conversation many times, so I'm not nervous about that. I'm not nervous about us maybe having different conclusions. That's fine with me. Like, all of your feelings about this are fine.
Right.
I'm just really apprehensive to open this up for public consumption, but I think that it's
that's
important.
one thing though, like, you're not gonna be on the same page with everybody, whether it's adoption or anything like they have different perspective of it.
Right.
We just share our story on our experience of it.
Right, and I do think that this perspective is important, but I also believe that white adoptive parents, their voices have been elevated so much in the narrative of adoption that I'm nervous to add mine. But I was talking with Dad, and we came to the conclusion that just like it's not your responsibility to educate people about racism and change the narrative about racism. Like, that burden isn't on you. You didn't create the problem. It's on white people. And I think that that's true when it comes to international adoption and white saviorism. Like, that responsibility is not on adoptees. It's on the people that have done the harm, and I am that person. So I think maybe it is okay that I talk on this, you know?
Yeah.
So that's my hope is that someone will find this podcast and maybe
can relate or maybe
and maybe think about things in a different way than before.
Right.
So yeah, I guess I should also say, like, give a trigger warning for adoptees or for BIPOC, which, if people are not familiar with that acronym, it's Black, Indigenous, People of Color. That maybe this isn't the episode for you. I think we're specifically speaking to the people that have done the harm in this situation. And not necessarily the people that have been harmed. So this could be triggering to those people, and I just want to give, a little warning about that.
Right. I think, I'm excited. It's going to be good.
I hope so.
It's going to be good. Sure.
Yeah. All right. So, obviously, I live in a country and a system that affords me so much power.
Right.
Safety.
True.
Privilege, and gives me opportunities simply because of the color of my skin.
Definitely.
And I don't think that we disagree on that. You know, that's...
No, I don't disagree at all.
That's a fact. And with that being said, this really is not only a conversation about adoption. This issue is married with racism, don't you think?
Yeah, I think, it relates a lot.
And white supremacy. As a white woman, I'm on a lifelong journey of dismantling and working toward this no longer being true of me. So I'm working first inside myself and then moving outward into the world, you know?
Yeah.
And because so much of this work has to do with me, I just want to be careful that I'm not talking over you this episode, because what you have to say, I think it matters to our listeners and it matters to me, but this work isn't yours to do. You know what I'm saying? So it might sound like I'm talking over top of you, and I don't want to.
I mean, you're fine. I was just,
Okay. So I want to be very, very clear that I am not an exception to this problem, and I don't get any kind of pass in it. I'm very much a part of the problem of international adoption. I always will be, as long as this system is in existence. So I think that's something I just want to make very clear up front. I'm benefiting from a system that is harming and even killing Black people. So there's work to be done, you know?
Yeah, for sure. I think for me, it's like, I always had this question, why international for white people to adapt? It's not like there wasn't kids here, you know, let's just speak about adoption, right? Forget the rest of the problem. Why does it have to be international?
Right.
Why does it have to be a person of color?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, why can't you just adopt kids from here? Like, that's been my question always.
Right.
You know what I mean? So what drive, like, I guess if maybe I'm putting you on the spot, but what made you decide to go, okay, let's adopt a kid from Ethiopia?
That is a loaded question, and even we're almost 11, maybe 12 years past when Dad and I first decided to do that. I think first I want to answer your question, Javi, but I have to take us back to really understand. So I grew up really differently than you did. I was very much bathed in American Christianity, Western Christianity, which is, I've now come to understand, a very unique faith tradition, and I honestly thought it was just the normal way. It took living in Ethiopia for me to realize how closed-minded I had been, and it took me until in my 30s, after I had adopted, to understand that Christianity is not universally all the same. And the way that I was raised and taught Christianity is actually a very small version of a much bigger faith tradition. So I was raised on a very white, Americanized God and Jesus, and I think that's a whole other podcast episode right there. But so my faith, and I'm using quotes, nobody can see me, is what ultimately led Dad and I to adopt. And this is where it's all tangled up with saviorism, the white savior complex. But so we had Katie and Scotty, and I was just not a very good pregnant woman. I didn't enjoy pregnancy. I had a very traumatic birth experience with Katie, and then I had kind of a traumatic pregnancy with Scotty. They had found some issues on his kidneys, which after he was born didn't really manifest into anything, but it was pretty scary, and I didn't want to go through it again. We thought our family was complete, and literally I was online one day and a friend of mine made an announcement like, we're adding to our family from Ethiopia. And Javi, I had never, ever, ever, ever considered adoption. It wasn't in my vision for my life. It was something that I thought people who couldn't have children did, but Dad and I could have had birth children more birth children if we had decided to. Right. So adoption hadn't, been on my radar until I saw that friend. I think it was a blog post. So this is back in 2009 when blogs were super popular, mommy bloggers, Christian mommy bloggers. So she had said that, and I don't know, I was just And then I just started researching other blogs and Googling, and I just found all these heart-wrenching stories about orphans in Africa, to be honest. I read about the AIDS crisis, and this friend of mine who was adopting, I talked to her, and she was saying that she had done all this research, and Ethiopia was the country that had the greatest need for adoption. And I had done other research, but now I can see the research I had done was kind of in an echo chamber, if that makes sense. It was just very one-sided. So, I had read that domestic adoption was not as much of a need as international adoption, and there's just so much. I'm just so ashamed, Javi. There's so much hero language in this, but that these children needed to be rescued, and if not us, then who, and that this is our call as Christians, and that we needed to adopt these children, bring them in our family, raise them up as Christians. It's all messy and tied in with colonialism. Now I look back and I could just sit here and cry.
Right. I think what people don't understand is, for me, and I can speak for Jamesy for sure, and maybe for other kids who have been adopted as well, is that we didn't need to be rescued.
I know. You didn't need to be rescued, especially by some strange white people in America.
Right. We didn't need to be rescued, but maybe perhaps there was, not all of, I think the idea of people coming to third world countries and saying, hey, we're going to take you home, is what sounds absolutely terrible to me. So, you come, you say, hey, we better. We got this, we got that, we have home, whatever.
Yeah, it's very much that we're better than you mentality. We know the right way.
People don't say that straight out to you, but, just the idea of it was, because it's not there's no problem in here. There is a problem here. Why can you address that problem here instead of traveling 7,000 miles? Say, hey, black kid,
right,
we're going to take you. So, that's the reason. The other thing is, if you know you was adopting a black kid, just the way you would prepare when you have a white kid, you have to prepare the way. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, Dad and I were absolutely clueless. You know that we were.
I know that, but I'm saying is that you and Dad was ready or did anything you could to be ready a parent to Katie.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So, but you knew at the same time you're going to adopt for a year or so.
Yeah.
So, especially since you know the history of this country.
Right.
Other way people know the history of this country. If you adopting a black kid from Africa, do not say he's not black. He is black.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It don't matter. He's black.
Right. That is something that, we've heard so much. No, they're Ethiopian. Right. They're not black.
People have said that to me. You're not black. What you mean? I'm black as hell. I'm black. You know what I mean?
Family friendly. It's okay. We'll keep it. No, this is real hobby.
But I think that's the idea of, I don't think adoption is bad. I think this is where we're different.
We're different because I've swung so far in the pendulum because I'm so ashamed. But I hear you.
I think the idea of pretending to be a hero rescue, that's why I draw the line.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And I think, sorry, I get emotional here, but I think that I would have said back then, no, I don't see myself like that. I'm not a hero. I'm not a rescuer. But if I look back on those blogs that I wrote, Hobby, the first time we went to Ethiopia to meet Jameson, we also visited other children, and I took pictures of those children. See, like if you were to read back over those blog posts, you'll notice a lot of hero type language, which I think should be an immediate red flag to the white savior complex. I don't think it was a conscious thought, but it's more of an attitude or behavior. Like I was saying, it's still really hard for me to admit that I actually felt like I was rescuing or a hero.
It's a more of a pride. Like
it is a pride.
It's pride, not just with you, but with
but I mean, it is pride with me. My behavior definitely indicated like the white savior complex. I would write these posts, and they were heart-wrenching about the experience, which this was also my first time out of my little white American bubble. And I believe my heart's intent was good in writing, but man, what was I doing? Like, I definitely had no understanding of exploitation, of poverty porn, and I was participating in both of those. And then people would comment on my posts, my Facebook posts.
You are,
yes, praising me. Right. And Javi, I let those comments live. Right. That right there is the white savior complex. I didn't delete those comments. Like, I let them live. And even at the time, they made me cringe, but I didn't do anything about it. Like, right. So.
I think it's like a lot of times, you know a little bit. I have so many white people write about my story. Like, you can find me on Google or YouTube, whatever. And because, where I was from, my living condition and all of that.
You interacted with a lot of white people. Right. Like, some of them were on short-term missions and stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Like, and I think it's not just adoption generally. I think
this is all a big.
If you think about it, like even NGO-wise, like how many NGOs do you see white people come from 10 days? Mm-hmm. They make a circle and pray for you because hopefully that God will save us from going to hell. Like, to start with, whether you guys came to save me or not, I'm not gonna go to hell. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm living a good life. Like, I understand my situation, circumstance may not be good. Well, my life may not be the same right now, but all my friends or other people, like, they content with what they are. Do you know what I mean? Like, they were happy. They get up happy.
Right. Just because life looks different than here doesn't mean that there's something.
So, yeah. Everybody have their own faith. What they believe in. So, like, imagine, right? Imagine I came to y'all house. Let's say, me, you out don't know me, and I came to you guys' house, to your dad, and y'all just sitting down and say, like, let me pray for you because y'all not good enough.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? That the idea of that, just like, I didn't think about it. The idea of that always felt like, it doesn't make me feel good. It just beats me up. You know what I mean? Like, gets me lower and lower and lower.
It's a us versus them, and white people are coming in and saying, we know better, we have the right way of living, we have the resources. Like, there's a power imbalance, there's pride there, it's just such a mess.
For sure. And I think, like, now thinking, you're not better than me.
No.
You know what I mean?
Of course I'm not,
Javi. And but like, I always believed that. Right. But like, just go, if you, even right now, if you go to a third world country, white person, they're better than me.
That's
white people have built that thinking on third world country, even here in black people. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So, this can relate to everything. But like, when you adopt, I guess my question was, what was really the reason? You know what I mean? Not just for you, for other people who adopted kids. What was your reason? Were you doing it to be a hero, rescuer? Because you felt like you're better? Because you think you got all the answers? Because you think you can be a good mother? Because you think, what was the reason? Because if the reason felt like I felt like I can guide this person. I felt like I want a good explanation. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and unfortunately, I don't have one.
So again, I think for me is why.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be, I wish that I had an answer for you. And I understand that this is frustrating. Like,
I'm not just
it's gonna,
asking
I know
you,
you're not just
but
asking me, but I think it's a fair question to ask me. And it's something I think I'm going to be unpacking for the rest of my life and looking at what my true motives were. I don't know. I
right. I think the other thing is like, the other thing is like, uh, people who adopt kids, right? You have no right to tell their kids a story at all.
Yeah, and I made,
You know what I mean? Like I know it
I
just
told
seems
parts of your story, and
like it just
I'm
not.
so ashamed of
It's
that.
not. You have no right whatsoever.
Right.
That kid lived that story. You never lived that story. So if the kid wants to tell the story, that's his choice. But you have no right to go on. You went to 10 days trip to Africa. You came back and said,
Right.
"I've been praying for this kid because he lives in the garbage. He eats nothing. Oh God, please him." You get the credit.
Right.
That
That's
has to stop.
exploitation. That's poverty porn, and it's rampant,
Right.
and it's wrong, and I participated in
Like
it.
just imagine like if you had terrible childhood. Like let's talk about I mean okay, let's talk about a child getting being abused by your parents or anything like that. It's a touchy subject. You know what I mean? When somebody talks about it about you
Right.
without your permission. You know what I mean? It needs to have there needs to be respect for that child's life, for that person's identity, for who they are. You
Right.
can't just post them on Facebook and say like, y'all, can you please pray for this that God gives them? Like, God already loves you. Y'all, you don't need to post to Facebook about it for him to have a good life. He will be alright. Like,
Because if you really look at the motives of those postings, a lot of times it really isn't to benefit the children
no,
either, if
whatsoever.
we're really
You get
honest
that
about it.
sense of like, wow,
Hero.
right
Again,
inside
it's
of you,
like,
like you get like, wow, all these people telling me how good a good job I done.
right.
You have
And of
nothing to
course, we
do with
all
it,
want to be good.
recognized or
Well, we
whatever.
want to be
Right,
good people, but this is
you're
taken
crossing the
to,
line. Right,
exactly.
you're
Yeah.
definitely crossing the line. And I think the other thing I hate is like, again, this is adoption aside, but it does relate is NGOs posting really crappy houses, homes of people where they live. That's just not
Right.
fair. That's not fair at all.
Yeah, I
That's
agree,
not
hubby.
fair at all for somebody to say like, look at their living condition. That's not fair. You know what I mean? Like, why would you even do that?
Mm-hmm.
That's taking humanity out of somebody. Like, why
Right.
would you expose them on a global where like, okay, this is their life and this is what I need you guys to help them and sponsor them. Like, it just
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to unpack here with all this. Hubby, I want to just pause for a second because I've said this to you before and I'll say this to you for the rest of your life. And I just want it to be clear to our listeners as they're listening to this and maybe feeling a little bit confused. Like, I love you and Jamesy with all of my heart. I am not shy about saying that I regret so many things about my past, and I do regret my role in adoption and the white savior complex, but never for 1 minute have I regretted you or Jamesy, and I never will. And I know that this probably makes me hypocritical, and it's confusing, it's complicated, and that's exactly what happens when we participate in something like this. It becomes confusing and complicated. But the truest thing is that although, like I said, I might regret adoption, but I don't regret you. And I don't regret Jamesy, and I need you to hear me on that for the rest of your life. We don't have to understand how it's true, and maybe we never will. And I also want to acknowledge to you publicly that I was not the best choice for you and Jamesy. I wasn't even the second, third, fourth best choice. I should not have been a choice at all. I shouldn't have been. Family preservation, reunification, keeping kids in their own country, their own culture, their own extended family, those were all far better choices than me. And I admit and own that I did not consider one of those choices. Not one. I thought I was the answer.
I think this is where our differences are. Like you say, you don't regret me and Jamesy. I don't think me and Jamesy regret you at all. I think you are a choice. I do believe everybody have their own path and their own story. I think my own story was to be with this family. I really generally believe that I'm meant to belong here. And I think like there are stories like that where you actually can connect. This is where we talk about nature versus nurture, where you can connect with other people that didn't even give you a birth and can have amazing long journey. I think we have that. But I think what we talking about is the why. Like, why would you that? But putting that aside, I want you to know that, like, me and James couldn't ask for a better mother at all. Like, I think and this is why I said, like, adoption can be good in a way for me. Like,
but it doesn't take away
it doesn't.
the wrong has been done.
I'm not bailing you out.
Okay.
I'm not bailing you out at all. It doesn't take away the damage and the pain it caused at all. But I'm saying is that you were, like, everybody needs a guide in their life, especially kids. They need that mentor. And for me, and for Jamesy, it's you and Dad. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it just meant to be, I feel like. And there are stories like that.
Which, I don't know if that's true. Like, that's where I don't know if I agree with you.
Right, I know I know that. But I'm just telling you from my perspective that I don't feel like you damaged did we walk hard road? Did we went up down the hill? Yes, we did.
Would things have been easier if I was black and Dad was black and we were Ethiopian?
That's the question that you keep asking, but like I think like that's the question you need to stop asking. You're white.
I don't think it is though.
No, it is. For me it is. But you're white and that's who you are. You're Tiffany. You was born in Norwich. That's who you are. That's your personality. You being black, you being Ethiopian, it does not change. Maybe even makes it harder. You know what I'm saying? Like, we got closer to your beliefs, the way you think about things. Maybe that made us closer. But let's say you're black. We may even have a close relationship as you think we will.
Yeah.
You may understand my culture better, yes. But it doesn't mean that me and you will be close. You Ethiopian, doesn't mean that me and you will be closer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The way it is, I feel like it's supposed to be. The way it is how it is. And I know it's hard for you to accept, but for me, I think everybody has like their unique story. And I think from the moment came this earth, whatever, I always believed this and told you like God has written my story and put it aside.
Yeah.
This is my fate. This is my path. You know what I mean? I'm supposed to be here. Like, even, like, just think about it. If I've never been here, like, would this conversation ever happen? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, so, I think, Javi, as your mom and understanding what I do now, though, for the rest of my life, I will always wonder if there had been a better story for you.
And for the rest of my life, I'll tell you, you and Dad are my better story. Like, I know this is hard for you to accept because you always felt like you did something wrong. You know what I mean?
Because I did, Javi.
I think that, again, this is where we're different. I don't think you did anything wrong. I think, did you approach the thing the wrong way? Yes.
I guess we cannot know what we don't know.
Right.
And can be arguments there, like I didn't choose to know. Right. And that's on me too. And then, like Maya Angelou said, when you know better, you do better.
Exactly. I think that's the point. Like, you can't blame yourself for what already happened. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think...
But I do need to take responsibility. And I do think that this is why this conversation is important. And so I think that this is going to be a lifetime of untangling this mess and speaking out. One of the things that I'm most ashamed about is, so I had a pretty big following on my blog, as you know, and would write these things that I now regret. But because of some of the things I wrote, families adopted. And that weighs heavily on me. So I think one of the reasons that I want to have this conversation, I can't go back and fix that, but maybe someone will listen to this and think twice and not make some of the same mistakes that I made.
Right. I think, like, you know, I don't hold grudges or anything.
Right.
But I do believe also that mistakes are meant to be made for somebody to grow, for somebody to see, for somebody to understand. I think, and I also do believe that you cannot fix what happened in the past. You know, like your past determines your future. I think the question right now is for people who already adopted, already have a child. Like, are you willing to acknowledge? You know what I mean? Are you willing to see what you did wasn't heroic, or you're not a savior?
Right.
Like, are you willing to acknowledge it?
And I am willing to.
I know, and I'm proud of you for that. I think we've been talking about this for 2 years or so since you realized that, and I'm proud of you. And the question for people should be is that, what am I doing? What I did, like, was it okay, or was it even? You know what I mean? Like, I think it's just a matter of somebody saying, "I'm sorry."
Yeah.
You know, and maybe it may not even be like, I don't know. I think it's just a matter of somebody acknowledging that what they did wasn't superhero type. Like, the kid, if someone is superhero, the kid who don't know there's people travel 7,000 miles to live in their house, that's superhero. Do you know what I mean? So for somebody to acknowledge it, that they should never get the credit.
Yeah, but I think that that's only the starting point, Javi, because I do think that it's also a broken system. There's just so much corruption in international adoption. This topic is so layered. There's so much to it. But yes, I agree. I think that it has to start in your own home, with your children, acknowledging the harm that you've done, the system that you've been a part of, and then it has to move outward. Just like with racism, like, it can't stay quiet inside you. There's work to be done.
Right, and I know so many kids that are from Ethiopia that have been adopted that ended up getting kicked out because of their behavior.
Yeah.
Because of they're not appreciative enough, because of they're not thankful enough. Like, would you kick your own kid out?
Well, I wouldn't.
But you know what I mean? That's the question, though. Would you kick your own kid out because you gave a birth? So for some reason, because you adopted this kid because he doesn't I don't know, fit your house rules or whatever, so you suddenly kicking him out.
Right.
That, like, why would that happen? You know what I mean? So I think like you said, this has to be two-part, but I think it's just a matter of acknowledging it. Acknowledging and saying, I can be better.
Yeah, and just like with racism, because I do believe these are two sides to the same coin. Like, for me, as a white woman, as an adoptive mom, like, this is a lifetime process. If I'm honest, I wish it was done. And I know that's really selfish to say, but sometimes I just wish I could get a pat on the back for opening my eyes and, like, that's it. It's done. But that's not reality, and it shouldn't be reality. Like, it's just gonna be every day waking up and seeing the beautiful faces of you and Jamesy and confronting the reality of the harm that I've done.
Right.
So, every day I need to continue to acknowledge the system that I participated in, and I just do this work for the rest of my life to continue to unravel this and do better. because I believe at the very least, you and Jamesy deserve that, and so do all the other people that have been hurt because of adoption and the white savior complex that so often goes hand in hand with international adoption.
Yeah, and I think I know you may not like this, but I'm proud of you for owning up to it and finally seeing things. And I think for people who asked us how our relationship is really closer, I think I said it the other day, is that you started seeing me as your son instead of as adopted kid, or you started seeing me and Jamesy as your sons. Make sense? You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
Like for families,
I mean, I think I would.
Right.
I would have said that I always had, but
people would probably, maybe I'm just speaking, I don't know, but there's a time where I even saw Facebook comments like, I'm having trouble about my adopted kid.
Yeah.
You can't say that. Like,
right. Mom's writing stuff on Facebook.
On Facebook asking people like any suggestion on punishment. I was like, what?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like that.
I mean, that's probably a whole nother topic, and I'm not sure if I want to
delve into that. I'm not trying to get deep into it, but like that's what I'm saying. Like that can't happen. Like you brought this kid because you believe he's your son.
Right.
So why are you even asking other people for suggestion how to punish him?
Yeah.
Are you doing the same thing for your white kid?
Right.
Are you talking about him on Facebook?
Right.
Are you messaging people and asking like, what should you do? How you can raise them? No, you're not. Because you adopted this kid, you're willing to do that. You're willing to say that, oh, I've adopted this kid, so he's not being thankful enough. We gave him a roof over his head. We gave him a blanket. You have your own kid who are unthankful.
Right. I've never understood that, like, that piece of adopted kids need to be so grateful and thankful. We don't expect that of our biological kids to be so thankful and grateful that I birthed them into life.
Right.
Like, so it doesn't make sense. So, like,
by the end of, so when you birth your own child, whenever he decided to leave, you expect him to say, Mom, Dad, I'm grateful?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So why would this adopted kid be grateful? This is something we
definitely agree on. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, like, you need to raise the adopted kid the same way you're raising your own child. Mm-hmm. At this point, he shouldn't even be considered adopted kid because he's your kid. He should be a kid.
Yeah.
Whether it's give him nachos, but whatever it is.
Like, you say nachos?
No.
Oh, sorry. I thought you said whether you give one kid nachos.
I mean,
sorry.
I like whether if you give one kid nachos, make sure you give the other kid nachos. You know what I mean? So make sure they both get nachos. But I think that it starts with small things, Ma. I think for me, I feel like when I see small things, when I acknowledge those small things, you can start seeing the bigger things. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's like the saying, baby steps, whatever.
Mm-hmm. And I do think it's a process. Like, I'm sure there's still so much more that my eyes need to be open to. Like, it's a process, and I think that maybe that's grace, because if I was to discover everything all at once, I would curl up in a ball and never want to leave my room, you know?
I think, like, and that's who we are, Ma, to see. Don't be ignorant. That's what it comes down to. Don't be prideful and ignorant and say, like, no, I'm the greatest. I'm this, I'm this, I'm that. No, just see things, be open-minded, and know that, like, you may be wrong.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's okay. It's not just
It's okay to not be certain on anything. Okay. Anything.
But the question is, are you willing? Are you willing to start learning? Are you willing to start seeing things differently? Are you willing to sacrifice your pride for your own kid?
Yeah.
You know, are you willing to say, I'm not a hero?
I might have been wrong about this.
You know what I mean? Right.
Yeah.
So it starts from there.
Yeah, I agree.
So, I think this is a really good episode. I think we touched on a lot of good points, and I think there's more still to talk about.
I think there is too. One thing that I'm not sure if we made clear is exactly what the white savior complex is. So for listeners that may be unfamiliar with it, we've talked around it, but to be specific, it's the idea that we as white people can enter into and help or rescue Black people or other people of color because of our privilege, because of where we happen to be born, because of funds that we happen to have, because of our perceived right way of living. And you'll notice like a lot of, as we said, hero type language. But that's the white savior complex just broken down real easily,
think, you know. And I think if we ever had kids that are adopted, I want them to know that, like, before we was even adopted, we are worthy, we are loved, we never needed to be rescued at all, but we are who we are, and that's what makes us us.
Yeah.
So like, kids who don't ever feel like worthless, don't ever feel like because you're adopted that like your value is low. Don't ever feel like unwanted or any type of that kind of feeling.
Yeah, and you and Jamesy mattered before Dad and I ever stepped into the picture.
And I know some of them may not like their circumstances. Some of them, thought they were getting family, but ended up getting, knocked down, kicked out, and whatever it is. Like, just know that, like, you matter long way before you're adopted. You are loved. You are valued in every aspect of life. So you are strong, creative, beautiful Black people, queens, kings. So that just know that you are okay in who you are.
Yeah, that was really well said, hubby. So I don't know. I think we'll put our heads together and see if we have more to talk about for another episode, or if this will be it. In some ways, we just scratched the surface, but I think this seems like a good stopping point, no matter what.
And also, like, sorry, I'm with you. Like,
no,
for
go ahead.
Adoptive parents, like, I don't hold grudges. Mm-hmm. I think all I ask, maybe on behalf of the adopted kids, is that just be open-minded. Just be ready to learn, ask questions, and how they feel about them being adopted. Don't just say, like, I adopted you, you should be grateful. I adopted you, you should love me. You may be having trouble because you are so stubborn and prideful about who you are. So, like, just be willing to let go of things. Be willing to say, like, who are you?
Be willing to be wrong.
Exactly. And it's okay to be wrong. Like, it's definitely okay to be wrong. It's not the end of the world. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Man, I was on my bag on that one.
So if you're listening and you have something to add to this conversation, I think it might be good for people to come join us on Instagram, and we can carry on the conversation there in comments. Our Instagram is at @you_bring_the_mic.
Slide in the DMs.
And if you listen to us on Apple Podcasts, please give us 5 stars and a review. This really helps us out. It will move us up in podcasts, but if you're not listening to us there, that's okay. Just thank you for listening.
Yeah, and be love, spread love.
Yeah, thanks for this talk, hobby. I think it was a hard one, but a necessary one, and I just really appreciate you wanting to talk about this.
Ma. Yeah, I'm in my bag.
I love you, hobby.
I love you too.
All right, till next time.
Till next time, and may peace be with you.
Hobby, we've recorded 3 episodes on our podcast now.
3.
And we've used
Anchor.
Yeah, it's really an amazing tool.
It's a fun experience. It makes everything easier.
It does make it a lot easier. And your favorite part, I'm sure, is that
free.
It's free. You love free things. Everyone loves free things. A really cool part of Anchor is that the creation tools allow us to record and edit on our phone or on a computer. Yeah, so we can do it anywhere. and that makes it super easy.
Yeah.
Anchor also distributes our podcast for us, so we don't have to do it. We're on Spotify, Apple, and so many more platforms.
Yep.
Yeah, that is a really cool part of Anchor. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership, and it's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. So, download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
Yep. Go get Anchor.
Yes.